So today we're going to be talking about category 2. And category 2 deals with all of our linear relationships. Category 2 is also the most tested category. And so we're going to spend more than 2 days. Hopefully we're going to spend 3 or 4 days on category 2. Because if I can truly understand this and commit this to memory, we're going to see those scores rise a ton from the benchmark because this section is huge. So we've got 5 different topics in category 2. We're going to look at intersecting lines, how to write an equation, solving for proportionality, talking about functions, which was a big one that we had some issues with on the benchmark, and then looking at proportions. So when I'm working with intersecting lines, when I have 2x plus 4 is equal to 5x minus 6, and I want to solve for x, where can I type this on my calculator to be able to solve for x? I hope you said that I can type it in y equals. I can type everything before the equal sign in y1. I can type everything after the equal sign in y2. Now, once I type those in, what steps do I press, or what buttons do I press to actually get my answer? Hopefully, the answer choice you chose was I press second, trace, option 5. When I press option 5, I'm going to wait for my graph. And then once I have my graph and my words, I'm going to press enter 3 times. But sometimes my calculator freaks out and it gives me this error message. When I'm using y equals and I get an error, what do I need to check on my calculator? We should be checking the window. For the STAAR test on the window, we're going to change all of our tens to 1000s, okay? Just to be safe. I know normally we do 100, but to be safe, we're going to go ahead and do 1000, just so it will always work, okay? I want you to go ahead and type that on your calculator and actually solve that for me. What is x equal to? And that's going to be a question that's going to pop up on your screen right now. So while we work with solving equations, we're also going to work with writing equations, either finding the slope of a line or trying to write the equation of a line. So when we're writing an equation from a graph, when it gives me a graph and says write the equation for this graph, or what is the slope of this graph, we're going to find 2 pretty points. Looking at my graph, finding those 2 perfect points where my line crosses the lines on the graph, and we're going to put those 2 pretty points in stat. If it gives me a table, I'm going to type that table directly in stat. And for those of us that might have missed that lesson due to being gone, or for those of us that are just struggling remembering those steps, let's write those steps out. So for stat, we're going to press the stat button. We're going to choose option 1. That says edit. I'm going to type my X numbers in L1 and type my Y numbers in L2. Once all of my information is typed in, I'm going to press stat. We're going to go over to calc, press option 4, which says ax plus b. And then we're going to press enter 5 times. So just as a reminder, when I use STAAR, it's going to give me two things. My calculator is going to say y equals ax plus b. A is equal to some number, and b is equal to some number. Just a reminder that that a is my slope. That b is my y-intercept. Okay, at the end of today's lesson, you're going to have some questions specifically that ask you to find slope and to find y-intercept, because that is huge in this section. Okay, we have to remember that our a is our slope, our b is our y-intercept. But every once in a while, they throw a word problem at us, and they want us to write an equation from a word problem. When I'm doing that, I have to remember my keywords that tell me where my x goes are per, each, and every. I'm paying $5 per hour. Could be 5x. I'm going to pay $7 for every meal. 7x. That part is huge, being able to write an equation. And I'm definitely going to throw some word problems at the end of this video. Then we talk about graphs being proportional and non-proportional. I'm going to put both of those definitions up on one of the questions, and I want you to match which one is proportional and which one is non-proportional. So proportional lines are straight and they're through the origin. Non-proportional lines are either not straight or they're not through the origin. And that is the most common type of non-proportional that they're going to give me, is something that is not through the origin. So when I'm looking at proportional equations, my formula is going to look something like y equals kx. There's going to be no add-on that equation. So on your computer screen, I'm going to pull up a question. From that question, I want you to choose the one that is proportional, my equation that does not have an add-on. I hope you chose y equals 3x. For my non-proportional, those things that are not going through the origin, it looks like this. Y equals mx plus b. There's some sort of plus. There's some sort of add-on. On your screen, I'm going to pull up another question. I want you to tell me which equation is non-proportional. I hope you told me that it was y equals 7x plus 3. We're so close to being done with this category. Hallelujah. Functions. Functions kicked our butt on benchmarks. We just could not remember what it is. And remember, functions are like dating. You never repeat an x. Some of y'all need that little bit of advice right there. You never repeat an x. So every inputs are my x values. They're the first thing in a coordinate pair. Every input has only one output. So an example of a function, 1, 2, 4, 7, 5, 8. My x numbers, 1, 4, and 5, are not repeating. But when I deal with a non-function, I get something like 3, 6, 4, 7, 3, 9, 3, 4, 3. That makes that not a function. So let's use those examples, and I want you to see if you can fill in these two blanks. I want you to fill those blanks in with the letters X and Y. What is not allowed to repeat, but what can. So for functions, X cannot repeat. My X number cannot repeat, but my Y can. If they give me a graph, I'm going to see if any of my X's repeat. We also talked about the vertical line test. The vertical line test says a vertical line. Remember, vertical goes up and down. A vertical line can only hit a function once. I'm going to see if I can zoom out. Oh, no, I didn't get myself very much writing room. Okay. So something like this graph, if I draw a vertical line, it's only hitting it once, so it is a function. But if I draw something like this, if I draw a vertical line right there, it's hitting that line over and over and over again right there. It is not a function. Okay? I'm definitely going to throw some questions at the end of this video. What is a function? What is not a function? And then our very last topic from here is talking about proportions. And we briefly talked about this. You cover it a lot in 7th grade. The big thing when I'm talking about proportions is to remember that I always set it up y over x. So when it says when y is 48, x equals 16, I'm going to write a proportion 48 over 16. What is x when y is 15? Y goes on top. 15 over x. We are going to cross multiply. So 16 times 15 is 16 times 15 is 240. We're going to divide by this odd man out. Divide by 48, which gives me 5 as my answer. They can give me proportions like that as a word problem, but they can also throw proportions at me with pictures, okay? So I have 2 different shapes here, and I know in 7th grade you work a lot with making this thing, and in 7th grade they talk about calling it big H, setting up this big H. I like to call it the box because I've got 2 shapes going on. I have a big shape and a small shape. And on those shapes, I have a long side and a short side. So I got big and small. I've got long and short So the long side on the small shape is 8. The short side on the small shape is 4. I'm going to use that same idea for the big shape. 24 over x. Now that I have it set up, I can cross multiply. 24 times 4 is 96. Divide by the odd man out, divided by 8 is equal to 12. There's my answer. Here is what we're going to do. In just a second, you are going to have some questions pop up on your video. Do not close this video until you make it all the way to the point where it shows you a grade, okay? Do not exit the video until you get to the screen where it shows you a grade. Once you have made it to the screen where it shows you a grade, I want you to access the quizzes using the code on the web page, okay? Do the problems, get to the grade screen. Once you get to the grade screen, go to the quizzes on the web page. Let's get busy.